Hey everyone, welcome to the Coffee People podcast presented by our friends at Roastery Coffee Packaging. You can find them online at roastery.com. Thank you for being here today. I'm your host, Ryan Woldt. You can follow or subscribe to our show wherever you're listening, but you'll only find the best bonus context, links, and recaps to this episode on coffeepeoplepodcast.com. Our guest today is Jing Lin, the founder of Coffee Confessionals in Hollywood, California. Coffee Confessionals is a coffee shop with a bent towards creating human interaction. They offer their experiential community space for events like a great comedy show coming up on February 20th, where they feature a diverse cast of local comedians. They also have interactive open mic nights and one-off events like tech and film panels, art shows, and even meditation seminars. Jing and I cover the concept and her roundabout way into the coffee industry from her previous career in the movie business. If you want to follow along or multitask while you listen to the show, please check out coffeeconfessionals.com or click through at Coffee Confessionals social media links in this podcast show notes. You'll see a list of all their events there as well. But first, you got to make sure that coffee mug is full. Mine is half full. And once again, I'm drinking a cup of our Yeah No Yeah collab with Relative Coffee Company. Our friend Bryant out of Minneapolis roasts this up. It's a blend of Colombian and Ethiopia beans that when they come together, oh so smooth. I'm going to drink this while you listen to another Coffee People podcast conversation, this one featuring Jing Lin, founder of Coffee Confessionals.
I'm Jing Lin, and I am the founder and owner of Coffee Confessionals in Los Angeles.
So the idea of Coffee Confessionals, and I want to talk about background and all that other stuff first, but I just want to get the idea behind it out. Is it a coffee shop? Is it a community effort? What is Coffee Confessionals?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is a coffee shop, so we have a physical brick and mortar. But, when I was building Coffee Confessionals, I loved just being at, cafes and meeting people. And I thought, I want to do this, but how do I make it into a brand that really just embodies the idea of community and getting together? And I thought, what is the most, what do you do in coffee houses? You're talking, you're telling stories, you're sharing stories. And by inspiring each other through stories, you're connecting deeper, right? That's kind of how friendships are built. That's how relationships are built. So the idea is you're kind of confessing, you're confessing certain things about your life, and you're so to speak, spilling your beans. And that's our motto, which is spill your beans. And I think that is really what has been kind of my North Star with everything that we've kind of built around the brand.
Okay, so we get the idea of Coffee Confessionals and the brand and the concept. Let's rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
First coffee experience, first coffee memory, anything jump to mind?
So I would say my first coffee experience, definitely Dunkin' Donuts. I grew up on the East Coast in New Jersey, and we didn't have a lot. I mean, we had shopping malls. We didn't have that much to do. So as kids, we would, after school, go and get a donut and a nice ice frappuccino from Dunkin' Donuts. And, that was kind of like, even going to college in Boston, that was our thing, oh, it's Dunkin' Donuts. So, I mean, not the best coffee, but it definitely is very endearing to me, the whole.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with Dunkin' Donuts, but what little I do is that as far as fast coffee goes, it seems to be like they put a little more effort into it. Maybe I'm just, colored by the Ben Affleck-ness of it all. But so you start that. How do you end up from the East Coast into California? I know you had a career, whole career before Coffee Confessionals. What was that path like for you leading towards where you are now?
Yeah, so I think that for me, I've always been a storyteller like yourself. And when I was a kid, I would honestly like make my sister dress up, and I would put on these I would put on these plays for my parents. And so I think I knew pretty early on that I wanted to do something in theater or film, and that was kind of the career path I was going down. I studied filmmaking in Boston, and then kind of in a weird roundabout way ended up in PR in New York. And I did that for about 3 years. We a lot of our companies that we were working for were pharmaceuticals, and I just kind of was feeling like deep down inside, I'm getting lost, and this is not really what I wanted to do. I graduated during the recession, so 2008, and so it was honestly just like hard to get a job. So I was like, okay, I got a job, like I'm doing it. I live in New York. I live in like a shoebox, but I'm doing it. So essentially, I wanted to get back to filmmaking, and so I applied for this program called the Entertainment Management Program at Carnegie Mellon, and I got in. And I remember the day I got in, I like gave my notice, and I was like, "Bye, I'm out of here."
So you go through that program, and from
Yeah.
there, I'm
Hmm.
assuming that's what brings you out to the West Coast, which
Yep.
is, as we all know, where movies are made, or they were before recently.
Yeah. So part of it, I felt like going into that program was a way for me to move out to the West Coast because honestly, I didn't know anybody. I didn't, I think I had one college friend that I was really close with that lived in Los Angeles. So I was like, I want to get back into the movie business. I did some internships here and there, but I never really felt like I gave it a good chance.
Hey there, thank you for tuning in to our Coffee People podcast and our Coffee People social media channels. This show is presented by our friends at Roastar Coffee Packaging. You can find them online at roastery.com. They provide high-quality, affordable packaging for coffee, tea, snacks, and more. I thank them for supporting Coffee People, the show, and Coffee People, all of you. Also for offering low minimum order quantities and making it easy to create customizable packaging for your company. Check out roastery.com. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, so I'd done a few internships in college, and then I took that job in PR in New York, and I just, felt like I lost my way. Felt like I lost my North Star, and I was like, I really wanted to pursue the film, being in the film industry, and everybody says it's so hard. Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna move to Hollywood, and you're gonna work at a big studio and all that stuff. And I just always had this kind of drive in me, and I'm like, you know what? I'll show you. Like, I can do it. I can definitely do it. So I got into this amazing program at Carnegie Mellon called the Entertainment Management Program, and I took a gap year actually in between. I went to Beijing, took a year off because I was just really burnt out from my job in PR. And when I came back, I moved to Pittsburgh. And that's kind of how I started the transition to moving out to the West Coast. So I did a full year immersion in Pittsburgh. It was like management courses, accounting, all of that stuff. But basically setting you up to kind of understand how the entire industry works, like how the revenue and the profits and how distribution models work, all of that. Um, and then and then the second year, which is the best part, they help you move out to California, and there is an actual career center, and you're taking classes out here with actual teachers and professors that are working at the studio. They're part-time faculty, and they're like part-time, well, not maybe probably not part-time, full-time employees of these like big studios, or they're producers. So we really got to work with some really, really incredible people and learn from just incredible professionals in the industry.
Well, that sounds like
So
a win-win too, because on their side, they're kind of seeing who might be the next person with skills or, willingness to work hard and all that sort of things to hire afterwards, I would assume.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And actually, I got my big job through one of my professors. And the crazy thing is, right before I moved out here, we had to get a summer internship, like during that like move between Pittsburgh and LA. And I could not land an internship. Like I was like, I have a good background. It just wasn't really in film. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be the only one in class that has zero internship like opportunities when I moved out here. And I don't know, miraculously, I got a call from Paramount, from the HR recruiter at Paramount, and she said, "Hey, your resume landed on our table, and we are reaching out because someone in our program had to drop out. They had already finished their hiring round, and someone for personal reasons had to drop out, and there was an opening in digital marketing." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, Paramount Studios!" Like, I was like, that's the cream of the crop. Like, I thought I was going to get, shitty little internship. No, I mean, no offense, but like not a really great internship.
No, that's what internships are.
Yeah. Yeah. But my Paramount internship was a dream. And how that kind of came about was I had given my resume to someone at it was a career networking event. And someone from MTV was there, like a HR person, a HR recruiter. And they're like, "Oh, we are looking for people." And I was very adamant about, like, I don't want to work in TV. I want to work in film, and this is what I want to do. And they were like, "Okay, well, we'll take your resume anyway, because our sister company Paramount, because everybody was
Yeah,
owned
it's
by
all.
Viacom. So, our sister company, might be looking for someone." And, you know, miraculously, my resume just kind of ended up on the right person's table. And that just goes to show you, like, I think, don't be afraid to say what you want. And you never know what person or opportunity is going to kind of swing back around or lead to like your big shot.
It's also, I mean, a story that I think also reflects a little bit maybe of the time period. And I wonder about that a lot now because
Hmm.
now a lot of resumes get filtered before they ever get to someone's desk. The idea that a resume would be the thing that lands on a desk now, as opposed to a resume that's been filtered by multiple levels of computer programming or AI or whatever, it becomes this tough thing for, I think, for everyone. Like, are you writing your resume for the job you want or for a person, or are you
Yeah.
writing it to get past those filters, and then is it reflective of who you are? And man,
Honestly,
I did.
these days, I don't even know like how I was like, I don't know how
Yeah,
kids get hired. I don't think I would get hired out of college. I was like, I don't even know the process.
kids, adults. Every now and again I'll see a job and apply, and like, just because it seems like something I'd really love to do.
Yeah.
And I've learned that unless I have like a connection to the role, even if I feel like I have the right references or the right skill sets, I have no idea if anyone ever sees it. And
Yeah.
I spent a day with a recruiter in New York when I first moved to New York,
Hmm.
a creative recruiter. I had gone in and pitched like my creative work, and they said, "Well, how would you feel about being a recruiter? Because we think you might be better at that because you're not actually very creative." I said, "Oh, well, that's very nice of you to say." They said, "Why don't you come spend a day with us?" And so I showed up on Monday, and as a little aside, but the woman that I was going to be following for the day,
Hmm.
one, didn't know I was going to be there. Two, had just gotten back from like a week in Cabo or some other type of party esque trip and was very hungover. And we sat down at her desk, and she opened her computer and she goes, "Here's your first lesson." And there were 7,000 emails from the week that she had been out.
Oh my gosh.
And she just selected all and deleted. And I went, "Oh my God, those were all people like me who are like trying to find these jobs."
Yeah.
And she said, "If they're people like you who are passionate about what they do and they really want it, they'll email me again."
Yes,
And
exactly.
just moved on with her day. And I was just like so overwhelmed, but and like, wow, like, and so that was back then. And now
Yeah.
that delete button is, a computer program. So
Yeah. No, I
uh,
I could just imagine recruiters. I mean, they get hundreds of thousands of resumes.
it
I
does
just
not seem like a fun job.
no,
I
no.
did not stay.
Yeah.
So anyway, you get your resume lands in the right place. The right person
Yep.
sees it. You start working with Paramount. What happens? Where does that go? And somehow it leads you to coffee. And that's where I think we're ultimately going here.
So I think so at Paramount it was such a great internship, and it really was kind of my foot in the door into the movie industry. And from there I went to Disney. I did a year at Disney, and ultimately I landed at Universal Pictures. And that was definitely, I would say, a direct connection from a faculty member in the program that I was in, and Jeffrey Schneider. He was teaching, I'm trying to think, business law. He was teaching business law. And I saw this, again, going back to resumes and job opportunities. Finding an internship was hard. Finding a job before the program ended was like trying to find a like needle in a haystack. It was, everybody was sending out resumes here left and right. You're trying to just do something to like get a permanent position, right? And so I ended up temping at Disney for a little bit, which was great because they extended my internship and they were like, we want you to keep working with us. And ultimately, they couldn't get the budget approved to have another add on another head. So that's fine. But I reached out to my professor, Jeffrey Schneider, and I saw an opening. It was kind of this rotational, it was almost like the PAGE program that NBC has, but it was for postgraduate students. So it was at a higher level and it was like a full-time 2-year rotational program. And he was the only person I knew at like NBC Universal. And I just said like, hey, like, can you send this to somebody? I don't know. Like, I just don't want to send it through the portal and then it gets lost. And again, this is where I'm like, okay, the stars are aligned or something. And he's like, I know the woman in the HR department that is heading up this rotational program. I will send it to her. I send it to her. They call me. They were like, you were literally the last resume in the door before we
Close it. Sure.
before we closed it. So anyway, in a long roundabout way, I go through like 10 rounds of interviews, even with the head of literally the head of the studio at the time. And I got the job. Long story short. And I loved the job. I loved the job so much. I went through different departments, different groups they had. So I started off in Focus Features and I did publicity for them. And we worked on awards campaigns. So I worked on the Dallas Buyers Club. We worked on the World's End, and that was super fun experience. And then I ended up, what was my next? And then I ended up in brand marketing. And so that was my next rotational program. And there I was able to really land a full-time job with them. I had an incredible mentor, Dave O'Connor, and he just kind of like took me under his wing and taught me a lot. And in that position, I was able to find, a really like something I loved and something that I was good at. We worked with brands doing collaborations on films to like kind of help promote them. And I did that for, I want to say like 8 years. I was there for a long time. So, but how I got to coffee was, after like the first 4 or 5 years, I was like, okay, I kind of get the game. This is what it is. And to be honest, I felt like I was more, like it wasn't what I initially wanted to do, which was to make stories, to tell stories, to create stories, to film stories, kind of like that little girl when I was like putting on, these like theater shows for my parents with my sister. And I was very much stuck in the nitty gritty of like emails and, getting, just pushing paper, so to speak.
You're storytelling adjacent.
Yeah, story so adjacent. And I just really was, yearning and longing for that connection, to be honest, not feeling like, and also just wanting the work that I was producing, whatever I was doing in life, to really have an impact on people. And I think the biggest driver for me was I didn't feel a connection to the service or product that we were creating. I don't know if the work we were doing were actually helping to sell more movie tickets. Was it like getting more audience in the chairs? I hope it was. But then I also didn't have like direct feedback. It's like, hey, like, did you enjoy that movie? How did you like that? How did you like that product? Like I didn't really feel like I had a hand in creating it. And so I think the creativity and my creative side was just yearning for something, yearning to get back to that. And so I started spending a lot of time in coffee houses. I started just like talking to people in coffee houses, meeting people in the coffee industry. And I would say that like, and then I was trying to find a creative endeavor to one, relieve stress, but then two, just do something that was like, okay, well, like I'm in the office, like, 9 to 6 every day. Like, let me do something that's for me. And so I started a coffee blog back then when it was like, it was fun to blog and it was popular to blog. Nowadays, I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know that a blog is a term that is people are that are I don't want to presume, but
Yeah.
under a certain age, like my
No one says blog
goddaughters,
anymore.
I don't think they know what a blog is. Uh, I also got my start as a blogger.
Oh,
So
yeah. You were writing about coffee?
no, I had a blog which is definitely of a time about hipsters in New York, and
Oh,
that was one of my first blogs experiences. And I was just like in my studio apartment, randomly writing about hipster products and hipster people, and hipster was still kind of a new term, I think. And I very clearly remember somebody had reached out and they sent me this product they called hipster spice, and it was essentially just a collection of like I don't know, like a Trader Joe's everyday seasoning, essentially, but in
yeah.
like a special package and a whole thing. And I,
I
you know,
love the
wrote this.
branding on that.
I wrote this review about it and wrote a whole article about it. And then years later, I was working somewhere and was talking to someone, and I mentioned that I had got my start as a blog, and they mentioned that they had this product called Hipster Spite, and I was like, oh my god, like I know that product, and they're like, really? Like no one knew that product. And I was like, well, I wrote this thing about it. And they were like, that was like the biggest day ever for us, like our little company, like getting this like professional thing. And in my head, I was like, oh no, like I was just like, like one little guy like over here. But it
Yeah.
was a good lesson on how we impact other people without realizing it. You know, what you might feel as a throwaway isn't. And I think that gets to the point of you were exploring these coffee houses and kind of doing something for you that meant something.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And I felt like it actually opened up a lot of doors for me. And to be honest, I never really thought I would open a coffee shop. It's like I think it's in sometimes like everybody's fantasy to be like, oh, I want to open a coffee shop one day and
yeah,
just
or a
serve,
bar or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
serve coffee. I get so many customers in here that's just like, oh, I want to quit my job and do that, and I'm like, yes, but do you really know what it means?
Yeah, then you say go home and clean your bathroom every day
Yep.
and like have no one say thank you for it. And
Yep.
then maybe you kind of want to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's such I honestly still don't know. Sometimes like I feel like I'm living in a dream because I was like, how did I get here?
Well,
Um
it's a big leap to say to one, it's an industry change.
yeah.
Uh, so somewhere along the line, you had to be in your office and that during that 9 to 6 and say, this isn't it anymore.
Yeah. No, you're right, 100%. And a mentor of mine had told me outside of this industry, he said, look at someone you aspire to be. Like look at like somebody, in the hierarchy that's like, a few rungs above you. And in 10 years, is that where you want to be? Do you want to have that job? Do you want to have that person's life? And I took a look and I said, oh my gosh, no way. I mean, you're getting like, the compensation is great, but it's just you're losing more time, more of your own personal time, right? And you're just really feeding kind of this corporate machine, and I was like, unless I'm on the creative side, unless I'm actually a director or a producer or like I'm on set, and I've always liked being behind the camera, I'm not necessarily in front of the camera. I just thought, I'm losing my creativity. It's not who I am, it's not who I aspire to be, and it's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so then, I kind of had to ask myself the hard questions like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? Because for me, I felt like in a way I was chasing that dream for so long. And, it was definitely challenging and difficult at times, but I did it. I got there. Right. And then it's kind of like, you're standing at the finish line or you're standing at the top of the mountain and you're just kind of like, oh, I thought I was going to feel differently about this. Or kind of like, oh, what's next? It's not that, I don't know, satisfactory feeling. And then I just felt very lost. Like, okay, well, like if not this, then what? Because I had dedicated my whole career and my life and, my identity was all wrapped up in this, in this corporate job and also, everything that I created and my lifestyle around it. So I think just for me as a way to decompress and relax, I would write, I would blog, and I just found comfort in these coffee houses. I found comfort in these coffee houses, and one of them was Brew Coffee Bar in Los Feliz on Vermont Avenue. And I found a real friend and mentor, Brent Goey, and he's from Bend, Oregon, and he was just one of those baristas that like would just talk to you and want to and remembered your name. It was so small, but I was going to this meditation temple kind of around the corner, and he's like, "Oh, where are you headed off to?" And I told him, and he was like, "Oh, that's great." Next time I came back, he was like, "Oh, are you going to the meditation temple?" I'm like, "Oh, wow, you remembered." And so what's really, really fascinating about him is that he has this incredible story where he owned his own coffee house in San Francisco. And he was also roasting for Ritual Coffee. So he was roasting for Ritual and owned his own coffee house, and then got super burnt out, moved back to Los Angeles, where to be with his wife and his daughter. I think they separated. But he came back and he's like, I just want to work in coffee. I just want to be a barista. So he sold it and then just is like their main head barista and just loves it and loves meeting customers every day. But like he's kind of like was my guiding light, and I would just pester him with all these questions about like, even from like roasting to creating coffee. And I mean, even down the line, like nowadays I still text him when I have a question. I'm like, wait, so how does this work? Why is this machine not working? But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that your mentor in coffee, or the first person that you kind of look to in that way, uh, decided he was too burned out to be an owner, and
Mhm.
just enjoyed the engagement part of it. And so you decided, well, I want to do the engagement, but I'm also going to be the person at the top getting all the stress.
Yes, exactly. I don't think he sold it like that, but I think I was still kind of like I still had blinders on. Like I didn't really see everything, I didn't lift back the veil, but I wanted to really create a space for people, to be honest. And but I think the best way to describe it is he made it seem like he made it easy. He made interactions with customers like really showed me what it is to create a relationship with your customer and really care about what's going on in their life and also creating a great cup of coffee, right? And so I found comfort in those coffee houses, almost like, honestly, like drinking coffee, like in the morning when you have like a warm cup of coffee. Like that's how I felt in those coffee houses. And so with my blog at the time, I would just reach out to people honestly and just say like, hey, like I want to interview you. And I got press passes to like coffee festivals and coffee conferences. And I was like, whoa, go me. And I like would wear a badge and like go interview these people and then like put on a suit Monday morning and like go back to my corporate life. So that was my life for a while.
When did you decide, or what was the tipping point that you decided I'm going to step away from the suit life and into the grind life?
Yeah. So I think there were baby steps, but I just thought, okay, you know what? I'm just going to learn how to be a better, learn how to make coffee, learn to be a better barista, and just for fun, like almost like a home barista, right? And so I took a coffee course up in where did I go? Was it? No, actually, I did go. I went to Oregon, and it was with Bellissimo Coffee, and took like a full immersion weekend with them, and just kind of I think I was floating at the time. Like I didn't really 100% know I wanted to open a coffee shop, but I just knew I liked being around coffee people. I liked being around coffee people. I liked being around roasters. Love learning about coffee. I like talking to people about coffee. And as I learned more about coffee, it just gave me more confidence. Kind of just I don't know. It just gave me more confidence to like step into my creativity, I think. And I and so I initially maybe just was researching, how much would it cost to open up a coffee house. I was just kind of crunching the numbers. Okay, well, what does it mean? Like, what does 500 square feet mean in Hollywood? What does 700 square feet mean in Santa Monica? I'd learn almost also like, it's price per square foot, and what's triple net. All of that, and I was just kind of like, I was definitely getting a little intimidated by the numbers. And again, I just met really, really incredible people along the way. I met developers and restaurateurs, and they kind of taught me about like, okay, if you're really going to look for a place, don't get a first generation space, get a second generation space. You do not want to go through the permitting and everything. So honestly, it was just kind of, I was like a squirrel. I was just gathering research, gathering information, and being like, okay, maybe this is something I want to do, like, do I want to do it? No, this is safe. This is safe to like stay in my little, corporate bubble. But then COVID hit, 2020 COVID hit, and everybody, our departments were getting slashed left and right, and my department unfortunately was one of them. And I had already kind of put together a business plan, and like basically all the all the steps behind it, but I just wasn't ready to really make the jump. And then when I got laid off, I was like, oh, okay, like this is the universe like giving me a push. Like, okay, maybe you're not ready, but we're ready for you to just take the leap, And so again, I think I was really blessed with all of the years I spent with Universal, because they gave me a great severance package. I still have a great relationship with them. They actually ended up hiring me back multiple times to consult for them. At one point while I was running the coffee shop, which was the craziest like couple months in my life, juggling those two jobs. But that severance package helped me really to kind of give me some time to really like find my space. And it still took a couple of years after that, to be honest, but I was just working on other personal things, and I was helping like the family business and things like that. But it was kind of a transition from me being, getting sort of this corporate paycheck to being an entrepreneur by myself. And I think I would have made the leap eventually, but I definitely don't think it would have been so fast if it wasn't for COVID. So
What made you want to have your coffee shop near Hollywood? I mean, you mentioned real estate. It's
yeah.
not the cheapest place to find a rental a space to rent. Um, was there a reason that was appealing to you, or was that just the opportunity that came up? And when did you?
I think that it was more the opportunity that came up. And I mean, I don't know about some of your other guests or people that you've talked to, but for me, it was so difficult to convince somebody, to convince a landlord, or to even give me a chance, because I honestly felt like applying for a job, like that, like, like closing the loop on that, like going back to like when I was applying for jobs, I was just sending out not resumes, but like, LOIs, like left and right. I was like, here, I'm interested. And I really do think it's not an easy road, and it's tough because you're not a proven concept. You don't have the backing of, a restaurant group behind you. They don't know if you're going to flounder or fail, or, it's like, okay, great. You have this great concept in the business plan, and, this nice little presentation that you put together, but, how are you going to be able to make the rent is basically what they're thinking, and, are you going to be good for the community? Are you going to be good for the neighborhood? So I was actually looking all over. I was looking in Silver Lake. I was looking in Los Feliz. I looked in Studio City, West Hollywood, Santa Monica. I was looking at, I had a couple of real estate agents, and I looked at places that were just like buildings that were just opening. I looked at second generation spaces. I even looked at first generation spaces, even though that was like against the advice I got. I was just kind of like desperate. I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to boots on the ground. But I ended up finding a space that another coffee house wanted to move out of. They were having some issues with the landlord, and also they wanted to change their name, and there was just like a lot of issues that they were having. So they had another shop in North Hollywood, and they wanted to focus on that coffee house. And this one maybe wasn't as profitable for them, so it was essentially kind of like an asset sale. And I still remember it was like a Saturday and they had an open house. I went in there and there was at least two other people that were there, like kind of just looking at the space. They had all their equipment out, and then they were like, we want to get out of here, like we just, and I looked at my funds. I had enough to do, to go into escrow with them. And then it was just kind of, trying to figure out, would the space work for me? And our space is about 780 square feet. And then we also have a patio. Um, but I'm going to be honest, the neighborhood wasn't like, it's not fancy Hollywood. When I was looking at the space, it was like Tent City across the street from us. There was so many like homeless tents, and pretty sure there was a meth tent because uh, the first week we moved in, one of the tents blew up, literally, just blew up on fire. And I remember my staff was calling me because I was getting some more inventory around the corner, and they were like, "So what do we do in case of a fire?" And I'm like, "What? What do you mean a fire?" I was like, "Is the place on fire?" They're like, "No, but the tents across the street are on fire, and it's so bad that it's literally like shaking our windows." And they're like, "We're hiding in the kitchen right now." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is my first week on the job."
Well, and I don't know necessarily. Had you been a boss at up to that point? I mean, a hospitality boss is different than, but having some experience leading a team is always a
Yeah,
key
yeah.
component.
It's so different. I was a director at my role in Universal. So I did have a team, but it's so different. It's like yeah, like you said, it's hospitality is so different. And I think the other difference is I felt I had a lot more support in my other role because it's like, oh, okay, something technical comes up or your computer doesn't work. Okay, take it to, call IT. Call IT, take it down to the IT department. That's easy. Here it's you're just troubleshooting.
Yeah,
And
you're the help.
yeah, you wear I think I will have worn every hat in the closet, and sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I feel like imposter syndrome all the time. And a lot of times you don't have time to really figure it out. You just gotta, it's one of those quick decisions you just gotta make, and you just gotta make it. It's like, okay, well, you know what? This is the decision I'm going with, and we'll, move on. We'll see. It's like whack-a-mole.
I don't want to lose out on this because I'm really enjoying hearing kind of the Schadenfreude of hearing your horror stories here about the
Mhm.
meth lab and everything. To be fair, the guy in the meth tent or the woman in the meth tent was probably making more money than you that first week.
Yes, absolutely. And they didn't have to have licenses for, they didn't have to
No,
have a
there's
sales license,
no licensing for meth
no
labs.
health permits. Yep.
Um, shorter business lifespan. But the idea of coffee confessionals, one of the things that really struck me about it, and why when I received an inquiry from
Hmm.
your PR person January, and I started looking into it, was the creating a space for customers to engage with each other,
Hmm.
which immediately makes me uncomfortable. Uh, like
Why
even
so?
though I am absolutely the person who sits at the bar and talks to the bartender and talks to the person next to me, it's this thing that I control to some extent, or I get to choose if
Hmm.
I do. You're creating a space that naturally encourages people to engage, which means it's more likely that someone's going to try to engage with me if I'm not ready for it.
Hmm.
What made
Hmm.
you think this was a good idea, for one? And how did you approach introducing that concept, not just to customers, but to your staff and to your business plan?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think it was definitely difficult for us at first because I understand sort of the hesitancy of people. Oh, I don't know if I want to be approached, but I also think a lot of times, whether you're at a coffee house or a bar or anything like that, there is this desire for connection. You want to connect, but you also feel very self conscious, and you're very, people can be am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? And it's like, I almost kind of want to take that veil off. Right. And I think coffee and alcohol sometimes is very much so kind of like this social lubricant. Right. And it kind of helps loosen you up. But other ways to do that, it's, we were really IDing it around it. And I was thinking, okay, like, what if we just had these conversation cards, these conversation starters, we put them on the tables. A lot of times it might just be like two friends that are just getting coffee. And while they're waiting for their coffee, they're looking through these cards. But I think our bigger goal and what I really, I'm really starting to create in this space is creating these meaningful events. Meaningful events where people can really come and connect with each other. So we have like a comedy show, we have an open mic, we've done an artist art walk, we've done an entrepreneurial tech panel before, and so I want to create all of these different events so that if you're like, you're a comic book writer, or if you're an artist, or if you're like a comedian or aspiring comic, these are places where you can come and just feel like, okay, this is a coffee house, but it's also kind of a social space that I can meet, someone fun and new. And it also just goes down to, for me, is my staff training. It's sort of like, obviously you're always friendly greeting the customers, but really asking them, hey, like, what have you got exciting going on for the day? Right. And sometimes that really just helps to open people up. And my whole thing is like, we're not forcing you to be social, right? Some people they're like, no, I just want to like get I want to just finish my script. Like, don't talk to me. Right. But I do think a lot of times people have that desire and they just don't have the tools to be able to just go up to somebody and say like, hey, like I literally just moved to the area and, I'm trying to make new friends and I don't know how to go about doing that. Right. And I've actually heard that from customers, like even just me interacting with customers. Oh my gosh, you have a comedy show? That's great. I just moved out here from New York and I love comedy. Or, oh, you guys have an open mic like once a month. I'm an aspiring musician. I just moved out here from, I don't know, Florida or wherever. And so I think it's just having that space where people can be like, okay, well, I'll attend the shop. I mean, I'll attend a show and see how it goes. I'll meet someone new. And so I think that's us like kind of trying to cultivate or guide people into these connections. And another thing I'm really proud of is we have a Spill Your Beans. It's like on craft paper, the Spill Your Beans board. And we do a different topic every week. It's like a fun topic. Sometimes it's a serious one. What's your New Year's resolution? What are you grateful for? What's a household disaster that happened to you? What is one clothing fad that you really regret doing? And then we just create these little, snippets, these little videos around it, and we read these out loud. And what I really want to do eventually is start to create these into more, create them into almost like video reels and video blogs about like different, different people, different stories. And honestly, I was really inspired by Humans of New York when I lived out there. I loved what that whole brand was about, telling the story, of the common person. And you're smiling because I feel like you really, maybe
I'm,
the
I'm
founder.
smiling because my computer is propped up on a Humans of New York book
Oh,
right
okay.
now.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. So I love, everything that Brandon did. And that was really a true inspiration for me. So that's kind of what I wanted to do with my own brand.
So I had this coffee smarter question I was going to ask you. Roastar asks us
Mhm.
to get advice for other aspiring entrepreneurs in the coffee space about changing careers. But I think what I'd rather hear is, now that you're into this world, what advice might you offer to somebody thinking of leaving a corporate structure? What have you found to be the bigger challenge or the sticking points that make you sometimes either reconsider or make you go, yeah, this is the right call for me?
I definitely think that it's baby steps, right? It's not just one day, I don't like my boss. I don't like this. I quit. Don't do that. Definitely don't do that. I think that for me, the more research I did, the more I understood what I was getting myself into. Even though I understood a lot of what I was getting myself into, you still don't really know until you're in the thick of it. um, but it was baby steps. And I remember, I think a quote from Jack Campbell, which I heard on like the Attraction video or the Attraction movie was, it's like you're driving at night, right? And you have headlights on and you can only see like, 3 feet in front of you and that's it. And then you get to that destination and then your headlights shine another 3 feet in front of you. And that quote just really stuck with me in terms of how I got here. you kind of had this destination in mind, but you have no idea how you're going to get there. You have no idea the funding. You have no idea how you're going to train your staff, who you're going to hire, where you're going to end up. Are you going to get a lease? What kind of lease are you going to get? All of these questions. But I just think I started to interview roasters. I started to interview coffee shop owners. I started to interview Brent, my mentor, and he gave me a lot of confidence in like, you can do this, um, but it was honestly baby steps, the more that and and it's not so much I just quit my corporate job and opened a coffee shop. In between, I did a lot of coffee pop-ups. I brought like a little, like one of those home coffees brewing, the Breville barista, and I went to coffee events and I made lattes and I made drinks and I did that whole thing. I I never felt like I wanted to just have a coffee cart or a truck because I wanted that space. I knew very early on that I wanted a physical brick and mortar for people to congregate and for people to gather and create, literally be creative, and meet each other. So that was always my goal. But along the way, I had partnered with this group called Forward Female, and they had a space in downtown LA. It was for female founders. And I did tons of pop up events with them, serving coffee, talking to customers. So I think it doesn't need to be such a big leap. I think you just kind of, maybe you go to farmers markets and you talk to other baristas and other founders, and you really see if it's for you, because it's never going to be this like straight arrow, straight shot into it. I think, and if you keep going, you're like, okay, I do like this. I do like serving coffee to people, but in kind of a smaller setting. It's like, okay, I did this event for 50 people. That was great. Next, I did this event for 100 people. Okay, that turned out okay. I didn't lose lose it over that. And you just kind of keep, I feel like you just keep expanding and testing your boundaries and testing your limits to see, like, is this really what I want? Instead of just stepping into a coffee shop and be like, okay, I'm gonna buy this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna, and then you regret it. But I definitely think that to a certain point, I had gotten to the end of my career and there was nothing else I wanted to do with it. And I think that was another big revelation for me, in that I didn't want to pursue it anymore. And that was a really big push for me to do something else.
In that moment, was there uh, any reticence because you had worked so hard to get there? Like knowing that, identifying that you are ready to move on is important, but there's also this, well, I did all this work to get here. Is it okay to do something else? That's what I would be concerned about for
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
And I
absolutely.
have been a million times over. So,
I don't know if reticence is the, maybe a little bit of reticence. It's kind of a mixed bag for me. Part of it is like, do I have permission? Do I have
yeah.
permission to step out of this life and do something for myself and do something that's, and culturally, I'm Chinese and my parents are very, they have a certain idea of what your profession should be. And because I still remember when I told my mom, she was like, "What do you want to do?" She treated it kind of like a lemon. I love my mom, by the way, but she treated it like a lemonade stand. She's like, "How much are you going to make selling coffee on the corner of like so and so?" She's like, "You're just selling cups of coffee? Like, I don't understand."
Yeah. I mean, well, and that's part of it too. If you have a certain level of income,
Hmm.
becoming a founder means giving up kind of some ideas of what every week's income is going to be. It becomes less predictable. It becomes sometimes non-existent.
Yeah, I
Sometimes,
think that honestly was the scariest part for me, being like, okay, so you're getting, 401k, you're getting a, weekly or biweekly paycheck. And now it's like you have to make sure that you make payroll. You have to make sure that you make payroll for your employees. You have to make sure you bring the customers in. When the espresso machine breaks, when the ice machine breaks, when a crazy person, goes into your shop, you're the stop. Like, you got to figure it out. And that's why I think, like, sometimes, and the corporate training definitely did help, because a lot of times we have to just troubleshoot and just figure out certain things like in a really fast pace. But it's like, okay, if the tent across the street is on fire, like, what are you going to do? Like, what do you tell your staff? You don't really have a moment to think. You're just like, okay, this is what we're going to do, and I'm going to make a decision now. And I'm going to, if it's the wrong decision, we'll course correct later. But you just have to really have confidence in, okay, I'm making this decision. I'm going for it. But yeah, I think giving yourself permission, maybe yes, being a little reticent to take the leap because you're like, well, where's my next paycheck? How am I going to pay my employees? And to be honest, it's like I still really do feel imposter syndrome. It's like, who do I think I am? Like, why do I deserve this? And I don't have the traditional. Route from that a lot of coffee shop owners, they might have been in management at another coffee shop, or they work their way up from being a barista to a roaster. I've worked in the hospitality industry. Like, I've been a server, I've been a hostess, I've done all that. So I understand it, but I didn't really understand the operations and the management of it. And for me, it really was a huge leap of faith for me to do that, and to but to have all of the mentors that were sort of cheering me on and guiding me. And I always tell everybody, I think the people I meet in the coffee space and in the coffee world are some of the kindest people you'll ever meet. And they're not looking to see you fail. It's like a hard enough industry as it is, everybody knows. And they're just there to support you, and they give you free advice. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting all this free advice. Like, are we competitors? No, we're not competitors. Like, it's a tough space, And I think it's like what do they say about doctors? It's like, to be a doctor, you really have to like want to care for people. You really want to be a doctor. You're not just doing it for the money.
Where is the money going in the medical? I feel like we pay so much in insurance, and then every doctor I meet is like, we're not getting that money. I have no idea where it's going other than insurance companies.
Pharmacy.
Pharmacy.
Insurance. Anyway, that's another
Sure.
conversation.
Absolutely. Okay, so what are you watching? What are you reading? You're from the industry. I assume you're still paying attention. What's
Yes.
the thing that you're getting excited about right now?
I'm just trying to think. This is an unconventional answer, but I just read a lot of I don't have really that much time to read. Like, I'm like reading insurance policies right now. I'm trying to
Oh yeah,
switch in general insurance liability. Watching, I really like it's
yeah.
true. I'm like reading
Spoken
insurance
like a
policies.
true owner right there. Yeah.
I'm like trying to get through all this paperwork for tax season too. And I'm like reading. I did listen to a couple of your podcasts, which I really enjoyed. When
Oh,
I'm
well, thank you.
driving, I like to listen to podcasts. And what else? To get my mind off of stress, I like to watch tennis matches. I'm a huge tennis fan, and I play tennis, so that's my go-to stress reliever. So I like
We
to
got
watch.
some big upsets this week in the Australian.
Yes. Oh, I see you're definitely
I
a
was
tennis fan too.
I was paying attention a little bit, although I'm not very good at playing anymore. Uh, Anything that we missed today about Coffee Confessionals? I know there's a lot more that we can go into in a future chat, but was there something specific or anything that you were like, I really wanted to get this kind of idea out in this episode?
You covered a lot. I think that just for people who are interested in being an entrepreneur, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the coffee industry. I don't think that it's, what am I trying to say? It's challenging for sure, but I think once you start to take these baby steps of talking to people and researching and doing all that, it becomes less of a daunting leap of faith, so to speak, than one thinks. And I just hope that my story can really help to inspire other people to just go for it. Like, even if you're starting, a book club in your own house, and then you expand it into something else, and then you write a book, or, whatever. It's just take the baby steps, start it first. And that's really what gave me joy when I was, like just buried in paperwork and emails. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do something fun, and you never know where it's going to lead. So, and I hope that our space can really create that kind of safe and connective tissue for people in the community, especially, just given all the craziness that's out there now. I really do want it to be a safe haven for everybody.
What is it that you order when you're out at someone else's coffee shop?
So I go between just getting a drip coffee because I just love black coffee with a little bit of creamer, no sugar. That really I love holding on to that and just having a conversation. Or if I'm feeling like, oh, I really want to try all these signature lattes, I'll get something adventurous, like, like, I don't know, burnt creme brulee latte or something like that. I love discovering what other coffee houses, their inventions and things like that.
If somebody is coming to Coffee Confessionals, and we'll share all the links, coffeeconfessionals.com, all the different YouTube and Instagram, Facebook, all that. If somebody's coming there, uh, what would you recommend if it's their first visit? I'm going to be driving through LA in a couple of weeks.
Hmm.
What should I expect when I walk through the doors?
Do you want a drink recommendation or an event recommendation?
Maybe a little bit of both. Like, what is the experience? Like, should I be nervous when I get there that I'm going to have to be social in real
Oh
life?
no, no, it's not. It's not like that. You walk in the door and it's like, go make a friend now. No, it's a very casual coffee shop. It is a coffee shop. It's not like this new weird invention where it's like you have to talk into like a speaker box or anything like that. No, we have our baristas. I would recommend. We have a drink called the Mocha Mousse, which was named after one of the Pantone colors, I think last year, where we have it's a hazelnut latte with dark chocolate foam on top, and it's so good. People love it. It's Nutella. It's unhealthy, but it's kind of like a fun Nutella drink.
You sold me. That's what I'll be getting. Jing, thank you so much for being here and sharing some of that. I'm looking forward to chatting again at some point and hopefully
Yeah,
having that mocha mousse.
yeah. Thank you, Ryan. This is good.
Now we get to do this really fun, awkward
Okay.
thing where we record room tone for like 30 seconds. We just stare at each other or look off into the distance. And that's it.
Thank you,
Okay.
Ryan.
Yeah, you bet. Hang on one second.